My life's purpose is the greatest thing in my life for my life. Now let me break that down because I think it's more important that I explain how I arrived to that conclusion, and that's how I can best share what my understanding is of purpose. And I think the greatest realization, like the most important realization that I have when it comes to this whole topic of purpose is that purpose is like greater than my own personal fulfillment. It's even greater than my own happiness. And what do I mean by that? Well, let me explain. Like, I've done a lot of self-development work, personal development. And I think like since a kid, right, it was in my mind that the target in life is about being successful, because if you're successful, then you'll be happy. Like if you are the type of person who can become successful at whatever it is you do, then whatever it is you need to work on in your life, you'll be able to improve that area of your life. So I thought, personal development, self-development will lead me, that will give me to the end, that will get me to the promised land, if you will. I'm just saying, like, the idea that I could make myself better and better. I could get good at setting goals, pursuing goals, achieving goals. That's where I would find all the meaning in my life, right? Now, then I learned, like, early on in my adulthood, I think it was like the work environments that I was in. I was around a lot of successful people, very successful people, like financially successful, but also you could see like people were building their lives up in different areas, not just with the money, but then they were thinking about how to build up the family life at home and how to build up their own health. And it was multiple areas of their life that they were thinking of building up. And so they would apply these success mindsets, and they would apply all their personal development systems that they did for, let's say, their career and making money. They'd apply that to other areas of their life, and they would do well. Now, I think one important lesson that I took from watching these people was that it didn't exactly mean they were happy in general. It just meant that, sure, they can find happiness from winning. So being a winner and getting good at winning meant that they could find happiness somehow. They could find happiness somewhere in their life. And as long as they kept applying that to different areas of their life, they had more and more places, more and more moments to feel that happiness. Now, I think that gives life a whole lot of meaning, right? But sometimes these people, even though they had a great life and they kept growing and growing in different areas, they still felt like something else was missing, and they needed to figure out something else. To me, they had it all, but they felt that something else was missing for their happiness, right? And I think that is why nowadays, like, my generation and younger even thinks about mental health, because we learn from some older generations who run into these experiences where they are successful and they're able to grow in all areas of their life, but yet still they understand that it's not a perpetual happiness that you arrive at in life. And so there's something else that they need to feel satisfied. There's something else that's supposed to give their life meaning. And this other thing wasn't about getting better and better themselves. And so I did a lot of mental health work when I understood that is where happiness can be maximized, in the mental health work. Because it doesn't really matter what your situation is. It doesn't really matter like what's going on around you. But if you've got the right mental health, mental, emotional health, that means that you'll be able to find happiness in any moment. It's a choice to experience happiness, and a simple choice. Like, it's a decision in the mind. And I think that when you work on holding up the right perspectives, when you allow yourself to be flexible so that you can pull down your perspective. It's a very hard thing to do, to pull down your perspective. I think in another conversation, I could talk a whole hour just about pulling down your perspective. But the idea is that if you are able to pull down perspective and you're able to determine which is a better perspective to hold up, then you have a different type of control over your life, right? Your perspective, the way you see things. Because when you can determine which perspective you're going to use in your life, you're going to be able to interpret things towards your happiness. And so what you might think of as a negative thing in your life may not necessarily take away from your happiness, right? It may take away from your mission. It may take away from you on your pursuit towards a certain goal, but it doesn't have to take away from your happiness, okay? And one example I'll give of that is how in one career, I was struggling, I was failing, and I didn't feel happy. But in a different career, I was struggling and I was failing, but I was happy. Now, the reason why I left the first career was not because I was struggling and failing, because in a different career, I was struggling and failing as well and didn't quit. But in this career, I was not happy. Okay, so if I had a different perspective that allowed me to be happy during that time, then I would determine to leave the career or stay in the career based on something else, not the happiness. But I left because I wasn't happy, right? And the real answer was to have a different perspective. So when I think about the second career and I think about the perspective that I was holding, I was thinking this is kind of like a game. And I think that when you have that type of perspective, then you can really understand what's going on with purpose. This is just like a game, and I'm going to be happy to play, win or lose. Now, I prefer to win. I don't like to lose. So to be straight up, I don't think I'm gonna have as good of a time when I'm losing, you know. I don't want to say I'm having a good time when I'm losing, but at least it won't take away from my happiness, because I'm happy to play either way. That's the type of perspective I came in to the second career. That I can be happy regardless. Now, what would drive me away from either career, with enough time in a single job, this is happening to me now, right now in my life, by the way, in my current job, what will drive me away, right? And in any career, what would drive me away is that it's not aligned with my purpose. And the more and more obvious that is, then the stronger a force that I feel pulling me away from this career. The clearer I can become about purpose, then the more obvious it will be to me whether something is aligned with that purpose or not. Okay, so then that is the reason why this topic is so important to me. You see, because I had to first realize that what would be more important in my life is serving a purpose. That's even more important than me being fulfilled by my life and me feeling happiness. To explain that a little differently, it's like you have to understand that it's okay to be self-interested. It's okay to go after what you want for you. I'm going to advocate for that 100%. But self-interest gives me a motive to take action, right? That's why I'm going to go and do something, get something done. All my behavior could be explained by self-interest. But Self-interest doesn't give me a motive to live. I'm just alive and I'm already alive and I just already want to live. Not because I'm self-interested. Okay. Now there's a very important concept here to understand is like self-preservation. Self-preservation is something almost of a reflex for us. It's like we don't have to think about it. It's part of our subconscious mind, our biology, the way we have evolved as humans over thousands, millions of years, right? But we have like reflexes to stay alive, and we don't even think about that. We're not even conscious of that, right? And you can say like that is self-interest, but the difference that I'm drawing between self-interest and the concept of self-preservation. Self-preservation is like we just assume that most humans have self-preservation. It's like that is more of your reflexes to continue living. Self-interest is how you use your conscious mind to get what you want. Like that's what it's related to. Self-interest itself is you thinking about what's good for you and going for what's good for you. That's you thinking about those things. So the conscious mind is being utilized in the process of you trying to go and get what you want, right? And your motive to live doesn't come from that, right? And I think that this whole topic of purpose is more connected to what's happening there in that subconscious mind. It's more connected to like the self-preservation part than the self-interest part. Something was already put in place for you, and it goes back further than your memory goes back. Like you don't remember your entire life because you don't have enough capacity in your recall memory. You can't remember every single moment like that. But you don't, like up to a certain age, right? You do have memory, and then younger than that you don't. So like maybe 3 years old or 4 years old or something. Maybe you have these faint memories at 2 years old or 1 year old. Maybe you think you have that, right? But then they're not so clear, and it's only like these one memory or something. The point I'm making about memory is that your memory only goes back so far. It doesn't reach through your whole life. And yet somehow self-preservation in your life, you wanting to be alive, was there from the start. So it was like it was already put in place before you even thought of self-interest. Actually, you're kind of taught to be self-interested, how to be self-interested. It comes naturally for you to want to be, but you have to then be like learn. So maybe, I don't know if it's taught necessarily, it can be taught. But what I meant to say was like you're learning as you're growing up how to navigate the world being self-interested. And we all naturally will become self-interested, okay? And I think one of the most important things too to mention there is like when you exercise that conscious mind, you're going to think more heavily on the self-interested side. And not that purpose requires you to eliminate that type of thinking, but it does require you to balance that type of thinking with the type of thinking that says you're going to serve something greater than you. You're going to serve something beyond benefiting yourself. And what's interesting is that purpose actually defines how self-interest is going to best align with fulfillment in your life. So like a clear purpose helps develop better self-interest mechanisms for getting the most out of life. If you can be clear on what you're serving that's greater than you, then these self-interest mechanisms inside of you will become developed. Because you're serving this purpose greater than you, that self-interest mechanism inside of you is getting developed in a way where you can see, because I want to do that, that is in my self-interest, I must behave in ways to achieve that in my life where I'm serving something greater. Right? Now you're getting clear. Now you're saying, what is aligned? What in my life is aligned? What in my life is misaligned with serving this purpose? And you're driven to take action. You're driven to shape your behavior by that self-interest mechanism. And you're going to get more from your life by thinking purpose first, applying your self-interest mechanism to determine which behaviors help you serve that purpose. And you're setting goals based on that, as opposed to just setting some goals to what you're thinking would give you the most out of life without ever thinking about serving a greater purpose. It's interesting. So what I'm saying here is that it's better to choose to work on understanding a clear purpose than it is to work on becoming successful in life without understanding a clear purpose that gives your life meaning. So like when the example here in my life is like, what do I want to be successful with? Me, what do I want to be successful with? And then I have to follow up, is this thing that I want to be successful with, what gives my life meaning? Does that give my life meaning? I choose a career. Let's say I choose my first career because I want to make money. It's kind of just, I already know that in order to support myself, I need to make money. When I was fresh out of college back in 2015, I understood that I moved away for college and I was living out on my own. I decided, I'm going to try to, just jump into a career here. And I did move with my parents for a couple months to have that help, to not have to pay rent, and also in transition of relocating to a new city. I thought it's good to take those few months to be at my parents' house, right? But while I was there, I always knew that I was trying to make it on my own. Like I was trying to be financially independent. So at that time, and I'm 21 years old at this time. So at that time, I just know like I have to have a job, make money, but not just have a job. I've always been told, you want a career, not a job. So I always thought, what is a career for me? So that's how I was thinking. And I went into finance. I went into finance as my first like professional career. I went into finance, and I was thinking the money, right? I just wanted to make money. Now that's not purpose driven, because I'm setting these career goals, and I'm setting the career goals. I'm getting into the job. I'm making all these moves, shaping my life around what I'm doing there for work, for the money. Okay. And I wasn't thinking about what my bigger purpose is and what I'm serving. Okay. Now I could have that same career, but think about it differently, like a new perspective. And when I think about it differently, when I approach this whole equation differently, all of a sudden I'm purpose driven. So in one sense, I'm doing the career for money and I'm not purpose driven. So I'm not living according to a force that's pulling me to do things for a greater purpose. I'm just going to work for the money. And so this is what I was talking about when I'm saying that I did the personal development work to improve myself, and I'm thinking about what's going to make me happy or what's going to bring me fulfillment. Like ultimately those things sound like deeper questions, and then I can, just accept like this is the career that's going to help me do all that. And so all that thinking was still not purpose driven. What makes it purpose driven, I'm going to make it simple so that you understand it. But let's understand, of course, there's a lot of complexity that gets involved here. But here's a different example. Here's a different situation where instead of choosing the career for money, I choose a career for money to be invested in my tribe. Look at that. So the money is a tool to accomplish certain things in life, right? So money's not everything. I hope you already understand, like money is not everything, but it does help us get things. It is still important. Money's not everything, but it's very important. It's a great tool to help us get what we do want. So it's not the most important thing. It's not one of the most important things in life. I don't know, but it's pretty important because it can help you get all of the important things in life. It can help you. It doesn't just on its own get you love, but it can definitely help you on your way to having love in your life. So there's a difference between doing a career for money and doing a career for money to be invested in the tribe. Now, I'm purpose driven when I'm thinking that way, because now I'm thinking I'm serving a purpose that's greater than me, my tribe. So these people who I care about. And when I think about me winning, being a winner, I'm thinking about how I win for the tribe. It's, you know, it's a really great feeling. And I think that a lot of people will resonate with that idea, because a lot of people can like easily admit that they like to represent. So I like to represent my people, represent my family, represent my last name, represent my hometown, right? Represent the West Coast. But people easily admit like what they want to represent. So I think it's easy for people to resonate with the idea that you're purpose driven. You move different when you think of you're doing things to serve this greater purpose. So when you think about that, then you're like, okay, money is an important tool for that. So I'm going to go and get the money to serve my tribe. And when you're thinking about how to get the money, I think naturally you end up at this conclusion that you should have a career because a job don't give you the best opportunity to make money. The career does. And that idea is that you can always go from job to job within the same career, and you can make smooth transitions all along the way, and you can keep making more and more money, and it can keep getting easier and easier. And why is that? It's because you become a professional at that thing, right? Whatever the set of skills, whatever the activity is in that career, you become a professional at it. You become really, really good at it. So your work is more valuable, and it kind of gets easier for you, right? If you're taking on bigger and bigger challenges, it doesn't literally get easier for you. It just feels like it gets easier for you. Just like the idea with our physical bodies. We can do more and more in life, and it's not that life gets easier. It's that we get stronger. And so when I look at my kids have a hard time, with simple things, and they get emotional. They get emotional, running into challenges. Let's say getting dressed, simple as getting clothes on, changing clothes, and they run into some challenges and they get frustrated, and it's hard for them. Okay, and I'm not gonna teach them that life gets easier, but that you get stronger. And I'll tell my daughters, you're gonna get stronger, and this gets easier. So that's the idea there, is that just like things get easier physically, like mentally and emotionally, things get easier. And it's not that it literally gets easier. It feels like it gets easier. It's because we're getting stronger. So that's why a career is the best way to get you the money, because you become really good at it. A professional. You should think about being a professional. That's why I use the term professional life. In my professional life, just thinking about career path, thinking about that type of journey. And so when I'm having professional goals, like career goals, and I'm thinking that for the money, I'm really thinking about how to serve the tribe. And I think that finding more and more alignment with that is my story of purpose in my life. To share a little more concrete, I'm at a place in my life where I started a career that makes me good money, and the money is good for serving my purpose. But the work that I'm doing in this job that I have now is not really aligned. Like the actual activity I'm taking, like what I'm spending my time doing, doesn't align as well with my greater purpose to serve my tribe. It doesn't align as well as like some of the work that I've done in the past. So it feels like for making money, it's good because it's not that hard, and I'm still making great money, but I'm being called to do something different because the actual activities that I'm spending my time on in this job doesn't align with that greater purpose. The reason why I don't leave now, like already immediately, is because like I don't want to give up that source of income, solid source of income. It's dependable, very abundant. The work is not hard. It's like lower responsibilities than what I'm used to having. So I like it. I like it for those reasons, but I don't like it for other reasons. And the reason I don't leave is because I don't want to give that up. I don't want to make less money. It's obvious. The answer is obvious. I don't want to make less money. So if I could get into a line of work that is that includes like activities that matches with my greater purpose, then I'll do it. Like if I could get paid to do things that I feel like are serving my tribe in the way that I would want to, then I'd rather do that job. And one of the big questions is like, so you start off with purpose, and it's like, I want to serve my tribe. How do I do that? Making money is a part of it. Okay, make good money. I'm making good money now, but this career may need to change because the actual activity is not as aligned. Can I become even more aligned in my career? Can I become even more aligned with my purpose, right? By changing my career? And I think the answer is yes, but I don't want to make less money. So can I make just as much money in a different career? Well, I'm figuring out that yes, I can. So I'm going to figure out how to transition into that. That is the kind of like the line of logic, right, that we're following. And that's purpose driven. And that's the idea of being purpose driven. That's where we want to be. We just want to be purpose driven. We don't want to like necessarily reach a certain point, but have our life be purpose driven. And I think another important point to make is like, I'm born by God's purpose and for his purpose. So I must understand that purpose better in order to live the best life. And that's why I started to read this book, What on Earth Am I Here For? By Rick Warren. That's actually the extended edition of The Purpose Driven Life, right? So that's this little book right here. Rick Warren, it's The Purpose Driven Life, the original one he wrote, and then he did this extended version. Guides you through a spiritual journey where for 40 days you get like one lesson each day. He's got some scripture quoted in there. He's got some questions for you at the end of each lesson for you to think about. And he separates it that way because he believes you should focus on one of these lessons at a time, right? And take the whole day just to focus on that one lesson. And what I'm doing, because I read the book, I read the book already and went through the whole thing once, and then like maybe a year later, I went through the book again and went a little bit slower and like took notes. And so I'm taking notes, like I'm reading it inside of the book, and then I'm taking some notes in another place outside of the book. And then for months after extracting, I didn't even extract everything from the book, I didn't get to, but for a few months of extracting pieces and studying, I like was able to type up and compile my notes and understand what am I getting from the book, right? And now that was maybe 2020 or a little bit before. So now when I'm coming back to this book, I'm coming back to it because it's applying to my life, but at this time I'm gonna share the stuff that I've learned and the stuff that I'm reviewing. And so at this point in my life, I could share like how being purpose driven is becoming the number one focus, and then everything will get shaped up around that. One thing I talk about a lot is a choice management system, and that's part of personal development. This is where I determine what is important to me in the bigger picture, not like priorities from day to day, but what are my priorities in the bigger picture, for the bigger picture. And family is a huge thing in my life. So because family is so important to me, then my priorities tend to put family at the top of consideration. And I'm going to make my number one priority providing financial security for my family. That's the number one priority. Now, how I go about doing that is up to me to choose. But being purpose driven allowed me to see that that was actually my number one thing, to provide financial security for my family. And it's not it's not difficult to do that. It's not exactly difficult to do that in terms of like the capacity that I have in life to do things. Let's do it vertical, like a bar graph. Like, I have this much capacity in life to do whatever I want. And to provide financial security for my family, it only takes this much of capacity. Now, at times, using this much of capacity to get it done may feel like a lot. And at times, I might have to use more capacity to get it done. But on average, it takes me, that much of my full capacity to provide financial security. Now, what I'm talking about is time and energy. So we have energy to apply ourselves physically in the world, and there's time, finite time. There's only 24 hours in a day, 168 hours a week. So through all my personal development work, I know how to be like structured and disciplined and planned out, and I know how to be like super strict about how I spend my time and my energy. And so to be successful, to win, to be productive, like to get things done, to shape this world, to have effect, we have to be able to maximize on our energy and on the time, 24 hours a day, 168 hours a week. But we would first have to determine, what are we trying to optimize for? And that's why sometimes I describe it as an equation or a line of logic. And if you think about it like an equation, like in algebra, you have a variable x and you solve for x. If that doesn't resonate with you, then just think of the line of logic that I'm drawing. And the starting point has to be purpose. And then anything else that we make sense of in our life, it has to draw from the purpose.